Hey beloved, my name is Krista Pettiford. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share a prophetic word that I believe the Lord put in my spirit this morning. And that is, there is a shift in the atmosphere. God is shifting things, whereas the enemy has tried to distract us, not with the things that we see going on with the unrest. I don't believe that is a distraction. I believe that is something that God is stirring up for change and for good. He's going to work that out for the good of those that love him and are the called according to his purpose, because God is a God of justice. But I believe in our personal lives that there is a shift, that God said at the beginning of the year that he was shifting things and that the enemy was playing his hand. And I believe that the enemy has tried to sift some of us as wheat. But just like with Peter, Jesus said, I have prayed for you that your faith fail not, that you would go back and strengthen your brethren after that you have suffered a while. And so God is through this COVID season, through being inside and moving different things around in people's lives and redirecting things, in the silence, in the finding a new rhythm, the enemy can send distractions to God's purpose and plan to get you off track, to have you take a detour, to block you from the highest purpose and plan that God has for you. But God is bringing a shift in the atmosphere so that you can see things from his perspective, so that you would not be deceived by the enemy and the distraction. So the enemy would bring distractions that look like they are from God, that look like they are good, that look like you should be going in that direction. But as you get quiet with God, he's going to dismantle what the enemy had sent as a distraction and as a deception, as he comes as an angel of light with things that look good, but when you look deeper into them and as you study the things, the opportunities and things that have come your way, then you will see that they are distraction to keep. Certain things have been distractions sent to keep you from going on with God, from moving forward with God. And so my prayer is that you would see and you would be able to rightly divide what God is saying, and that you would, as God is shifting the atmosphere, the spiritual atmosphere, that you would come up, just like me, come up higher to a place and not even be distracted from what God is doing. And even in the civil unrest, and I don't think that is a distraction, but we can get so caught up into it that we don't see what God is trying to do in it. And so we have to see what God is trying to do in what he has allowed to happen. And then we have to also see in our own lives where things may be unrested. Like right now, I am on a furlough, so I am actually very rested, but in the trying to use my time wisely and to do things, there's so many opportunities, but you have to discern what is of God and what would lead you in a different direction and cause you to take a detour. Because when you're in a season of transition, there are many paths, and you have to be able to discern what is the path toward your purpose, what is the way that you need to go, what way is God leading you versus which way looks right, which way seems right and prosperous. And because sometimes the way that God leads you is a way that seems maybe harder at first. And that's not all the time. Sometimes God will lead you in a way that just flows and seems easier. But that's why you need discernment, because God is not figure outable, or you cannot put God in a box. You cannot put him in a box and say this is the only way that he does a thing. And so we have to have discernment to see what God is doing in this certain time, in this shifted atmosphere. And so I believe that God, where there was a level of heaviness, where there was a level of slumber, that God is awakening his people to hear and to see things differently. And many of us have been praying and interceding and asking God to, and he's been revealing things to many of those that intercede and pray. And as we've been asking him, what now? But in even that, the enemy will try and send a detour to right at the brink of breakthrough. You'll see distractions come up. And so you have to be aware, because if you're caught unaware, that's what the enemy is looking for you to be caught off guard and to give in to the distraction and not to see it as such, so that he can get you off of the focus that God would have for you. And so take the shift. And so even all those things have happened, what I'm saying is that there is a shift, that God is lifting the blinders, so to speak, the heaviness, so that you can see. In your quiet time, the Lord is speaking so that you can see what is actually going on, and you can rightly divide the truth and see what is not of God and what is of God, and that you can be raised up and redirected in the right on the right path, because the enemy has snares on the path of transition. And so just seek the Lord, beloved, and see what God is saying. And if you feel like you have not been praying, or something has been distracting you from hearing God, or if God gave you an instruction or directive at the beginning of this time, where he put us all on a time out, and now that we're about to come out, were you able to stay on that, or did something else come in the midst of that and take your attention away from what God called you to do when you first got quiet? Go back and see if you have completed that assignment. Go back and see what you have done. Is there something that distracted you from doing what you heard God tell you to do when we first went into this time? So many are about to come out, and some have never actually gone all the way into a time of rest, as many have been working and doing different things, continuing during this time. But there are many who have, and even for those who have continued to work, because the world has been on hold in many ways, then it has caused people to rest. Even if you work, it's not like, you get to go out and do certain things. And now that society, the economy, and everything is opening back up, before we plunge out into going back to our regular routine, which may not ever get back to complete normal, what we knew before. Now that we're at that place where the door is open, and we can go back to church, we can go back to work, we can go back to going out to eat and be distracted. Have you completed your assignment? If God spoke to you, if you're in a season of transition and God began to show you as you had quiet time with him over these past months, have you completed that which he said, or were you distracted? Ask yourself that and go back and look. One of the things I do is I journal when the Lord speaks to me. Go back and look at what God has spoken to you and see if you completed it. And then ask yourself, why not? Where did you get off, and why didn't you complete it? And where are you now in that thing that God gave you to do? Because as I said, God is shifting the atmosphere, and he wants to break that off of you. Whatever distraction, whatever is keeping you from seeing things and moving on the path that God has for you, that may have come in. You may have started well, but maybe something hindered you. Then God wants to break that, and the shift in the atmosphere is going to allow us to come up higher in the spirit, so we can we can continue to move with God and not be distracted with earthly things. Not that we don't walk on earth and live on earth. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that sometimes we can get distracted with the day-to-day and forget the spiritual things, to forget what God has said, what we're supposed to be doing in the spirit. And we can get off on a wrong path, or we can get detoured or stopped or paused on the path that we're on. And so God is, that's what he gave me this morning. There's a shift in the atmosphere that is going to allow us to break up the heaviness and the detour and the distraction, so that we can see rightly and move rightly in the right direction. God bless you. I hope this helped you.